Live in the UK, state-controlled Britain, which is home to two of the geniuses when it comes to answering questions live. But they're not here today, so it's just us two. And I'm actually really pleased to announce that I have the UK's the world's top nutritionist with me, Richard Smith. Hello, Richard.
Stephen Thomas. Good day, kind sir.
Good day to you. And it's been a week, isn't it? It's been a very busy week, but we're here every Sunday, 7 p.m. Come rain, come shine.
Indeed, I wasn't with you last Sunday, but yes.
Well, yes, but you were in South Africa presenting a very important presentation. But the show's here every Sunday at 7 p.m. I should say.
100%.
Right. Yes. Is that a new backdrop behind you, or is that?
It is indeed. It is. It's a new printout of the old backdrop. So to save the blue light, which I've been putting on in the background recently, I've decided to put this one back up.
Okay, cool. Right, excellent. Are you feeling good to answer some questions tonight?
Awesome. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, first one I think is actually for me. Does Cereal Stem Enhance contain chlorophyll from the spirulina? I'm impressed by my dog's improvement since giving it to her. Yes, the mescaline extract does have that. So I didn't know people gave it to their dogs. But anyway, that's good. And the young man, Jonathan, is here. And he was here last week. Yeah, good man. And when a question came up that we could have got him to answer, he disappeared last week. I was gutted. But anyway, it's good to see you. And then we got Juha, I guess that's how you pronounce that. I don't think this is really a question, but anyway, how about elevated uric acid eating beef liver or sardines, just like Nick Norwich just did? Well, I think that's Nick Norwich. I used to watch his stuff, but I don't anymore. Gone off the boil completely in the last year. I think, yes, you can do that. I mean, I'm actually quite bored with these experiments because it's meaningless. Yes, you can eat. I think it was 1,000 sardines in a month. I saw the thumbnail, so I don't really know. To what end? You know, what's the point? So you eat a lot of things and something goes up. I've got to the point where I've joined Richard's gang, where unless there's some sort of clinical outcome, we can manipulate every figure we like. We can dehydrate ourselves by not drinking water. We can increase our blood glucose by running a lot, in a short burst, like sprinting or lifting heavy weights. But anyway, do you know anything about this, Rich? Do you want to add anything to it?
I don't. As you know, I don't follow many of the so-called influencers or so-called nutrition experts. You and I perform our own research. We come to our own conclusions, and it's not something I've seen. But look, uric acid, it's actually an antioxidant, and it comes from the purines, essentially. But purines are created from the breakdown of many things, like cells for energy, ATP, GTP, DNA, RNA. And the fear is that they cause gout, but purines themselves don't cause gout. 5 to 10 times the volume of purines are created within the body than from diet ourselves. And as we say, uric acid is actually an antioxidant, and it exists in normal, healthy joints. So uric acid itself, I don't believe to be a problem. These are things that I test, regularly. I don't test for my own purpose. I test because other people ask me to. And my uric acid is always incredibly low, despite the volume of animal proteins that I eat. So you can't help but wonder whether there's been some sort of reaction to somebody who doesn't consume lots of animal proteins to consuming lots of animal proteins, i.e. sardines, for example. But look, what's the outcome? Okay, you've increased uric acid, but has it led to gout? Did he suffer with any gout issues? I don't know was the answer. I didn't watch the the podcast or the recording, but my guess is no. And if it is, then it's more than likely caused by fructose. Uric acid is indeed an antioxidant. Carnivore muscle,
yep.
Jonathan.
Yep.
So it's, and as we say, it exists in perfectly healthy joints, and in my opinion, not a problem. I've been living this way for over a decade, and I'm still waiting for my gout. I'm still waiting for, what else is there? But yeah, what else do people say? There was a comment on my Instagram.
Scurvy.
Scurvy. I'm still waiting for scurvy. A comment on my Instagram today from somebody who, it was to do with eating animal proteins and how saturated fats lead to insulin resistance. And I'm 12 years into the journey. How long? And bearing in mind that I've reversed what we class as insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes from eating these fats and animal proteins. And I'm still in a non-diabetic range well over a decade after. And I explained to this person that, look, it's you and I, Steve, we are always open to new ideas. We're always open to research. You should always question the science and don't take our word for it. Listen to what we say, go off and do your own research. But we need to understand that most of the studies that we see, clinical trials, research papers, are funded by the companies who want you to consume said product, for example. And we study in the real world. We work with between us thousands and thousands of clients over the last decade. And this is real life data. And what I said to this person was, look, I once believed what you did, that plants and fruits conferred huge benefits and that they were the magic elixir and essential for optimal health. But these compounds are the ones that made me sick. It's coming away from these and eating animal proteins and saturated fats in particular, which are very beneficial, by the way, that I've managed to reverse these things. And I had to rethink everything that I'd learned up to that point because it didn't translate into the real world. And that's all I can say to people is, look, just look deeper. Don't take the things that you've been told on social media, in the media, from the powers that be, that these things are correct. Do your own research. Most of the carnivores that we work with, or at least a lot of them, have come from a vegetarian or plant-based or vegan background, and they've suffered issues and they've come into this way after going through this whole cycle. So always be open to new things, research, and just take control of the advice that people are giving to you. Do your own research, and always look deeper. We should always try to prove ourselves wrong, and that's what a true scientist is. We have a theory. Well, let's prove it wrong. If we can't prove it wrong, then it must be true. And I am all for carbohydrates and plant compounds and magic elixirs. If there is something that I can consume that will increase my health and well-being, increase my longevity, athletic performance, if there's anything out there that will allow me to thrive in life, I am all for it. I will be animal-based. I will eat the fats. I will do lean cuts. I will eat carb. I will eat fruit. I'll eat whatever that may be. Look, I'm up for it. I'm in this for optimal health. It just so happens that this journey has led me to becoming carnivore because everything else has failed. Everything else has failed along the way. And this currently is where I am.
That's brilliant. Yeah. I mean, I did over a decade of private blood testing, and not on me, I mean on all patients. And the correlation between uric acid and gout, it doesn't exist because we have people with high levels of uric acid and no gout, and people with very low levels of uric acid and lots of gout. And the biggest culprit was fructose, actually, in fruit.
Fructose, yeah.
When we spoke to most people, they were eating a lot of fruit, and that was causing the problems. Jennifer is saying, "Hello, gentlemen. Here for your support and say hello. Thank you for all you do. That's really appreciated." If you do want to support the channel, of course, and you want to put a question, you can put your question in with a big QQQ in the front, so it jumps out at us. And if you really want to go even further, maybe jump the queue, no pun intended, you can do a super chat or a super sticker and really help us. Can you also double check whether you're subscribed or not? Because if you think you're subscribed, you might find that YouTube has unsubscribed you, which is terrible, isn't it? Now, one here. Yo, is Sarah Valdivar invited to the 24-hour Carnivoreathon this year? Well, actually, that came and went, the date to try and do that, but events got in front of us, I think, and didn't seem like it was going to be possible. So probably won't do one this year, but maybe next year when things have settled down a little bit. But thank you for pointing that out. I would invite Sarah to talk about dopamine, but maybe that's what people would expect, because that's the sort of thing she talks about a lot. All right. Lisa K, how long should you fast before blood pathology tests, e.g. fasting lipids, insulin, glucose high from Australia? Well, if you've not had any done before, I would say pick a time between 8 and 12 hours, but then always stick to it to get your trend. So if you've had some in the past and you remember that you fasted for 9 hours, then I would do it for 9 hours. So that will get a trend for you, and stick with it. But do definitely actually fast. Don't think, oh, I just have a coffee before I go down to the hospital, because that will mess things up. Definitely do a proper fast. Now, it's some people book their blood draw for 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I would try and get a morning appointment if you can, or if you're doing it at home, I would try to do 9 a.m. because if you're doing, say, for instance, cortisol, you want to get that circadian rhythm. You want to see the cortisol at its peak, which is not a bad thing, by the way. It's a real, diurnal rhythm. It's you don't actually want to cut the cortisol in the morning. So yeah, that's what I would do. Did you want to add, Richard?
I think you've nailed it.
Thank you very much. Well, you can take the next one, sir. In ketosis, what fat is burnt? Is it dietary fat or body fat? So if a person wants to lose weight, should he or she, by the way, eat less fat?
Brilliant question. Look, it's both. But what happens in the beginning will change very much along the journey. So there's a difference between being fat adapted and keto adapted. So in simple terms, fat adaptation is when we start to metabolize fat for fuel. So we don't burn fat per se, but for the sake of terminology, we're going to run with that. And we can use it from both, but we can increase the body's ability to burn fat or metabolize stored body fat by increasing the dietary fat in the short term, because now it becomes a signaling molecule. We're telling the body that now fat is our preferenced source of energy, and we need to use this over the carbohydrate. It also signals the upregulation of certain gut microbiome, gut bacteria, and it will shift from predominantly Firmicutes to Bacteroidetes, which will preference the proteins and fats. So it is important in the early days. What I wouldn't recommend for somebody to do if they are new to a low carb or ketogenic lifestyle is to go low fat. We're already restricting the carbohydrate, so we should be consuming the fat, at least in some preference. We shouldn't be fearing the fat, but also the opposite is true. We don't want to consume too much fat, because this can lead to gastro distress. And what happens is we consume the fat, the bile production will increase in most cases. And the bile production, because it's been so low for so long in most people, it's lost its intelligence to be reabsorbed in the small intestine, can lead to severe gastro issues, diarrhea, and so on and so forth, which basically means that the body's not actually absorbing many of these nutrients. We do require fat. Fat is essential fatty acids. It's in the name. Essential fat-soluble vitamins, A, D, and K. We need the fat. We can take some of this from stored body fat. But my advice in the beginning is not to fear the fat. Consume some dietary fat as nature intended typically. But the first place that it's going to be, it's going to be used from the dietary fat. But the first place in the body that it's going to be used is the liver, because this is where the body creates ketones. So the fatty acids will go through beta oxidation, and then beta oxidation will create a compound called acetyl-CoA. Acetyl-CoA will build up, and then this will enter another pathway called HMG-CoA, and the mevalonate pathway, so on and so forth. And this will create ketone bodies, 3 ketone bodies, 2 of which are wasted in the early stage, and we adapt this over time. But liver is the first place. Visceral fat and any dangerous fat is the first place that it will take that fat. So within the first few weeks, any fat that you have lost from your body, the majority of that fat has come from the dangerous fat, the visceral fat. So it's not this protective fat, the squishy fat. It's the dangerous visceral fat. And that is critically important, because it means in the first 2 or 3 months, the biggest percentage of your life change towards the betterment of your health occurs within that period. So don't fear the fat, manipulate the fat as we go along. But my advice in the beginning is don't overthink it. It's the removal of other compounds that is going to see the biggest benefit. When we remove particularly carbohydrate, removing carbohydrate, which by default is high in, grains, removing the grains, which by default is high in carbohydrate. We remove most of the phytates, the lectins, we improve intestinal permeability, and the seed oils. So removal of grains and seed oils are going to confer the biggest benefits. For me, when I teach people about optimal health, carb reduction doesn't typically come until week 3 or 4. It's understanding how damaging grains and seed oils are initially. And then following this, we reduce the carbohydrate. Then it's understanding the importance of the proteins and the fats. And essentially, we just don't fear the fat. So don't overthink it. Just remove the grains, the seed oils, slowly reduce the carbohydrates, get into this fat burning state, as we call it. And then we can adjust the fats as we go. But what works now may be very different in 6 months' time. But this is why Stephen and I are live every week to address these Q&As. So report back and let us know how you get on.
Yeah, brilliant. Very full answer, which is what we do. So that's why we often recommend using the super chat to get you ahead, because we have got 13, 14 questions already waiting in the wings, but we like to give you a proper answer rather than, oh, you can look it up on my internet YouTube channel. I've got a video about that. We actually talk to you and try and give you the full thing. So anyway, Sue has used the super chat. Thank you very much. Richard, you mentioned a fermented cod liver oil. Can you link the brand you like, which I personally think is off of the Real Food Company's website, unless you now sell it, Richard?
I do not. I've just popped a link. I'm on
brilliant.
there now. It is indeed by the Real Food Company. There are they all appear out of stock currently. There's still cod liver themselves available, but reach out to the company. They're constantly getting new batches, and this is a brand that Stephen and I have both tried. It's very good. It is fermented, which means it's non-oxidized, and it does contain full spectrum vitamin D, which is critically important and more bioavailable than most of the vitamin D supplements that you see in the market. So highly recommended.
I would give you a quick tip. If you have sensitive taste buds, I think I would get the one with an added bit of cinnamon. Yeah, it just make it a little bit more palatable. Carnivore Muscle Jonathan, both of these blokes on the screen have pictures of health on and off the screen. They practice what they preach. Listening carefully is highly advised. Thank you very much, Jonathan.
Very kind.
Shane Rick Mail died. He could have reprised an old character and called himself Kevin Scurvy. You're right, mate. I remember Kevin Turvey. I think he spoke something like that from Redditch. Anyway, yes, good joke. I like that one. Right. This is interesting because I was only looking at venison this morning. What's the name? Chicote Carver, I think, possibly. It's hunting season in Oklahoma. How about a venison-only diet? Is there enough fat?
Yeah, brilliant question. Look, I'm all for a varied diet, and by this, I mean more than one animal compound.
Yeah,
I don't
mean
very
lean, isn't it? Yeah, it's very lean.
It is very lean. Rabbit, also very lean. Pigeon, for example. So these are things that you can survive on for a period of time, but eventually they will lead to something called rabbit starvation because the body needs the fat. I don't think it's something that we can survive on long term, but it's not going to kill you to consume it in the short term. But throw other meats in. Venison is absolutely delicious. It does need to be prepped correctly. I know I don't. If you're used to hunting venison, I don't need to tell you. But for those who are listening, you do need to bleed it well, because it smells and it doesn't taste very well if you don't drain the blood efficiently. But venison, incredibly delicious if you prep it and cook it correctly. But not one long term indefinitely, but certainly seasonal. So consume it while it's available. But if you can supply other forms of meat with it, also even better.
Yeah, I was looking at it because it was a pack of 3 for 20 quid, and then they're normally like 30. And but in all seriousness, it's a good source of heme iron. It's good in B vitamins. So adding it in, as Richard, is the best thing. But right. Let's have a look at the next thing. So, hello to all. Any of you managed to improve knee pain caused by osteoarthritis? Trying to avoid any surgical procedures that will prevent any natural healing repair systems? Yes. I think we've both had clients that have seen huge improvements in knee pain. 16 years I've been doing this. I started off first 5 years believing in high carb, doing rehab for people. Then I had minimal success, if any, really. But once I went low carb, the success rate went up. And when I went keto, the success rate went further up. And then when I went carnivore, the success rate went up even further. So what does that tell you? I think the more carbs are out of your diet, the better. But sorry, Richard, I talked over you. I thought you were going to answer as well. Sorry.
No, by all means, like 100%. I completely agree. I used to suffer with what I believed to be some form of arthritic pain when I was clinically obese and in that insulin resistant range, if you like. Look, when we remove the carbs are highly reactive. They move in the body in as glucose in two forms, a cyclical form and a linear form. When they are in their linear form, they're highly reactive to producing AGEs or glycation, which goes on to produce AGEs. These will eventually bind to other proteins and they'll activate two pathways. One's called the NOx pathway, NADPH phagosome oxidase, or NOx for short, and the other one is NFKB, nuclear factor kappa B. The NOx pathway is going to lead to dysregulated cholesterol, damaged DNA, damaged cells, and glycate almost every tissue in the body. And the NFKB pathway is going to lead to inflammation. Now, inflammation is going to be one of the main contributing factors to osteoarthritis. Now, osteoarthritis, we must remember, is also autoimmune. So it means that there's some form of intestinal permeability. So becoming carnivore, or at least removing grains and the compounds, which are going to be huge contributing factors to this, is going to help. Grains contain not just gluten, but wheat germ agglutinin, which is highly reactive to the intestinal lining, the enterocytes in the gut. They cause the release of a molecule called zonulin. Zonulin release causes a gap to appear in the tight junction between the epithelial cells. This is leaky gut, and this is where autoimmune comes from. So we do this, removing the grains, alcohol, huge contributing factor, medication, big contributing factor, casein, found in milk, big contributing factor, and phytohemagglutinins found in all vegetables, but they predominate in things like tomatoes for our friends in the States. They're also found in all nightshades, including the potatoes and cauliflower even. So, and green beans, all of these things contain high levels of these phytohemagglutinins, which can also contribute to this. So by doing all of these things, we help to combat these issues. And then as we become ketogenic and the body produces beta-hydroxybutyrate, beta-hydroxybutyrate has an anti-inflammatory component. It basically blocks inflammation. It blocks a pathway called NLRP3 inflammasome, and it helps reduce that inflammation. So the key to this is removing the offending compounds. Sugar is obviously going to be a contributor to that. Grains, again, as we mentioned earlier, alcohol, fructose in fruit will glycate. It's more reactive as a percentage than glucose, even though the carbon double bond oxygen isn't on the end of the linear chain and it's one carbon down. It's in its linear form more often than glucose is. Therefore, it's more prone to glycation. So fructose from fruit, highly reactive and can cause issues. If you're consuming the fruit and you're consuming grains, well, grains also contain a compound called fructans. The fructans break down into fructose. So even if you're not consuming fruit, we're still consuming fructose from the grains. Now, the grains are treated with a compound called glyphosate. Glyphosate blocks a pathway called the shikimate pathway. The shikimate pathway, the end of the shikimate pathway, the input to the shikimate pathway is how we break down fructose in the body. So if we block this pathway, fructose builds up in the lower gut. It leads to fatty liver, increased triglycerides, and increased inflammation everywhere within the body. So there's a few things to take away there, Michael, but I hope at least one or two of those can help. But yes is the short answer.
Yes, it is. That's the short answer. Right. This is a question as well. Rose Bailey, as a 62-year-old living in the north with less sunlight for winter, I'm feeling good as a carnivore, but I wonder if I should supplement with vitamin D what would be the dose if you think I need it? Well, should is a very key word there. We don't know what you should do, but we can say that most people seem to benefit in the Northern Hemisphere if they're not seeing sunlight. So that would be someone like myself. And I always think that I could do better with some more vitamin D3. And I do supplement with it every single morning. And I take 10,000 IUs, which is deliberately calibrated to sound scary, because they, being the pharmaceuticals people, I don't want you to take it, because it absolutely does help your immune system. And just to give you an idea, 10,000 IUs is roughly equivalent to sunbathing in a Nordic country like Finland for 30 minutes. It's not a lot of vitamin D3 when you compare it to the natural vitamin D3 you would get from sunbathing in quite a notoriously cold and bleak country like Finland. So, yeah, so I would do 10,000 IUs, and that would be my generalized answer to that question.
Yeah, brilliant. It's look, we also must remember that some of us are genetically predispositioned to create and process vitamin D from animal proteins. So myself, I live in a very cloudy, rainy country in which I probably get maybe 60 days of sun all year. My body will process the vitamin D from the animal proteins I consume at a high rate. Therefore, my requirement for additional sunlight is reduced. That said, I'm not against supplementation. My preference would be that cod liver oil, the fermented cod liver oil, because it's full spectrum. And I know you did a test with this, Steve, didn't you? And what it showed was that it increased vitamin D in the blood, but it didn't increase it as much as supplementation. But the reason that I believe that that's the case is that the vitamin full spectrum from the cod liver oil is more bioavailable, more active, therefore there's less in circulation, which is what we see with many things. Either or will do. I'm certainly not against vitamin D supplementation. If you think that there's an issue, then supplement with either the fermented cod liver oil or a vitamin D3 supplement. You'll soon know if it's conferring a benefit.
Yay!
We've got always conferring a benefit. I don't supplement with D3. I do eat lots of animal proteins, organ meats, very high in D3. Sardines and other oily fish, very high in D3. Full spectrum sunbeds could be beneficial also, arguably. Probably a sore subject for many, but I do believe that they may confer benefits also. So yeah, there's a few options, but supplement if you think that you may be deficient. But what I would say is, how do you feel? Do you feel that the body is lacking anything? Because you may just be optimal in regards to your health and well-being and not require any supplementation. But I don't think a little is going to hurt if it's something that you want to experiment with.
Brilliant. And Michael is saying, thanks, gents. Superb answer, a $4.99 donation there, which is very helpful for the channel. And don't forget, if you have subscribed, just to check that you have actually still got it subscribed, because we don't like what YouTube do. They do unsubscribe people, and it's really frustrating. Also, a few people in the chat mentioning the school group. Just to tell you what that is, if you don't know, we run a group, Richard and myself, where you can post any question about carnivore, or you can just talk to people about how you're feeling, and you'll get some answers about training and good videos people have seen. So that's one of the good things. There's also a classroom there where there's loads of courses, and you've got a free keto course, 19 tips to going carnivore, how to be carnivore, which is really good. Then we've got thyroid ebooks and lots of instruction and videos. Dairy as well, fruit and veg, level 5 there, free ebooks, popular videos, things about protein, problem solving. The more active you are, the more levels you can go up. And then there's 3 of my books, which you can get to download, ebooks, Fat Club, or the Healthy Living Club, which is 60 days of personal help and videos from myself and Richard. And we've also now got premium content. So there's 2 choices. You can either join on the standard or the premium content. And the premium content basically is just very educational, loads of videos about bloods and how you read them and how they actually get the measurements and on the thyroid, the iron panel, liver panel, kidney panel, what beta oxidation is, and fats and glucose for energy, fiber, the truth about it, how fats differ. These are all PDFs that you've got here. But there's like I say, loads and loads of videos. We've even got videos about the heart and just loads of stuff. And I've even started an archive, mental health, and just loads of things for you. So if you want to do that, Richard, I don't know if you could kindly put a link in the description. You've already done it, you see, so that's good. And that's our school community. And I didn't show you the calendar, which will tell you that after this, in half an hour, we do a live Q&A just for the members. And then we also do that on Monday at 6 p.m. in the UK, in state-controlled Britain. And I also do one on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Wednesday Wellness. So there's loads of chances to ask lots and lots of questions, get lots of details, and educate yourself as well. So that's the school community. And thank you for the link. Did you put the premium link, the new link, by the way, in the chat?
I don't know. I think it may take you to...
okay.
I think it'll take to the...
Well, when we get to the next question, I'll double check and make sure that people can get those options. Right. In fact, I think you'll be able to answer this. Thinking of replacing coffee with Rooibos tea vanilla. Any thoughts about oxalates, plant toxins, anti-nutrients in it? Thank you.
Yes, lots. Yes. Look, it's let's depack this one by one. Coffee is a compound that it's a plant compound. It is damaging to the body. Many would think that it's the caffeine. The caffeine itself, it is a neurotoxin. It can cause issues, and it can cause issues with things called glutamate. So it can dysregulate the glutamate to GABA ratio, and essentially it will pull tryptophan down a pathway called the kynurenine pathway, which leads to depression, anxiety through something called glutamate excitotoxicity. But the caffeine fades in comparison to the acrylamide. The caffeine can be well tolerated by many people on its own. So if you were to take a caffeine supplement in isolation, that is far less damaging than consuming the coffee as a whole, because it contains the caffeine, it contains the mycotoxins, and it contains acrylamide. And acrylamide is still found even in mycotoxin-free coffee. Now, acrylamide is a potent neurotoxin. In 1990, I believe, in the state of California, it was slapped with a Prop 65 warning. It made the Prop 65 list, which basically means it's a known carcinogen. So coffee is a known carcinogen. When was it? 2011, off the top of my head. It also made the Prop 65 list again for being a neurotoxin. I know firsthand how damaging acrylamide is within the coffee, and it's created during the roasting process. So when the coffee's heated, it creates the compound called, Andrew Scarborough rightly says, replace coffee with bone broth. Fantastic swap. The acrylamide is created through a reaction with the acrolein, which basically leads to the formation of the acrylamide, which we can also create if we overcook our food, by the way. Anyway, tea, probably less damaging, but it's not without its own risks. So yes, very high in oxalates. Oxalates can kill, by the way. For example, a pack of spinach, depending on how much oxalate it contains, and it does range somewhere between 500 and like 1,500 milligrams per 100 grams. As little as 10 packs of spinach, if you were to blend and drink, could be enough to kill somebody. And I'm not recommending that you do that, by the way, before I get banned. But oxalates are incredibly toxic. They are found in coffee. The tannins, which are endocrine disruptors, can cause issues also. But in regards to the antioxidants don't really exist in the context that you believe them to. So we're fed this whole lie about a compound. It's this magical unicorn compound that we can consume, which confers all of these benefits, magic tea, and what else is there? These polyphenols and so on and so forth. And look, what happens with these is they're not actually antioxidants. They begin their journey as a pro-oxidant. They elicit a pro-oxidant response. And they do this via a pathway called NRF2, nuclear factor erythroid 2 related factor 2. It activates this pathway, which is an oxidative stress pathway. The body sees that there's a toxin in the body, so it increases glutathione, the body's master antioxidant, to conjugate to the toxin and remove it via glucuronidation through the body. Now, this process can lead to a antioxidant response, but it's elicited via a pro-oxidant pathway, which basically means that in the short term, it may be beneficial. This is how medications work. It may be beneficial, but if you consume said product, i.e. the tea, every day, this overexpression of the NRF2 pathway will lead to the increase and activation of NFKB, which is what we mentioned earlier in regards to glycation and advanced glycation end products. This NFKB pathway, nuclear factor kappa B, is highly inflammatory. It will increase inflammatory cytokines and interleukins and cause many issues within the body. So in the short term, if you were to drink some tea, you may see an antioxidant response, but it's not something that we should consume every day. Now, second to this, if we look at the polyphenols, for example, now polyphenols means many phenols. They are a structure which is not used in human biochemistry, at least naturally. They may confer a benefit for someone who is sick. And the reason that it will do this, if you were in a state of high reactive oxygen species, or ROS. So ROS is very important. It's essential. We do need it, and it is produced for a reason. It's an important signaling molecule. But what we don't want is too much reactive oxygen species. Now, this basically means free radicals that are circulating within the body, causing havoc. Now, if we consume a compound such as tea, which contains polyphenols, the polyphenols have lots of hydrogen compounds which can bind to the free radicals and neutralize them, therefore lowering the reactive oxygen species. So in the short term, they may confer a benefit. Now, for you and I, Steve, these are problematic because we don't suffer with high reactive oxygen species. Our reactive oxygen species is where it should be. It's at a level of homeostasis. It operates between an upper and lower limit where it needs to be. It's an essential signaling molecule. If you and I were to consume something which is high in polyphenols, this drives the reactive oxygen species down, and it leads to something called reductive stress, the opposite to oxidative stress. So who asked the question? Was it William or Vicky? Or I can't hear. Not sure.
I'll get it back.
Apologies. So whoever's asked this question, if you are living a low-carb ketogenic lifestyle and you are in a healthy state where you feel that the body is operating between its upper and lower limit, if you're carnivore and you have been for a prolonged period of time, these are likely to cause more damage, more harm than good because of this reductive state. So just to reiterate, Steve, if you and I were to consume these, we're in trouble. This is why when you and I consume plant compounds, like our bodies become inflamed, we become incredibly lethargic, we suffer with gastro issues, we explode in responses all over the body, aches and pains. It's because this increase in polyphenols has neutralized or reduced the reactive oxygen species to a point called reductive stress, which for you and I is bad. So in short, tea is going to be potentially less damaging than coffee consumption, depending on the amount that you drink. But it's not a compound that I would recommend somebody drink every day. And it's not a compound that I would recommend somebody drink in high quantities. If you are going to consume it because you still feel the body needs healing and you're in this state of reactive oxygen species, maybe consume it now and again just to give yourself a bit of a kick. But ultimately, the best way to heal is by removing as many of these compounds as we can and allowing the body to be in its natural metabolic state, which is ketosis. By the way, this is our natural metabolic state. It's the metabolic state we're born in. It's the metabolic state we've evolved in almost our entire existence. The body, by doing so, will increase glutathione and it will increase its antioxidant capacity through the production of ketones, which means that you don't need to do it through the the introduction of plant compounds.
Brilliant. That's really, really good. Well done.
Take a breath.
Take a breath, sir. Yes, thoroughly deserved. What are your thoughts? This is from William. What are your thoughts on raw milk, currently on carnivore, meat, eggs, and some cheese? How would 1 glass a day of milk affect the Randall cycle and general health?
Brilliant question. So look, it's if you are, William, already carnivore, meat, eggs, cheese, you're already winning. That's fantastic. A little bit of milk, if it's a glass of milk, or raw milk, fantastic. So raw milk is going to be A2. So typically milk is A1 or A2. A2 is arguably less damaging, and it seems to be more tolerated or better tolerated between the carnivore community for a period of time. Now, this does come with a caveat. What I would say to this is, if it is something you consume every day, it will eventually start to cause problems, not so much through the Randall cycle. So the Randall cycle, for those who are listening, is basically a competition between fats and glucose for energy production, which basically means one of these substrates is going to be stored. So if your body is in a ketogenic state, it's going to store the glucose found within the milk. If your body is in a ketogenic state, it's going to store the glucose, and this can be problematic long term. The A2 still contains casein, and casein, even though it's better tolerated with most carnivores, especially in the early days, it can lead to problems if you consume it over a prolonged period of time. Personally, my advice would be keep it in until it starts to cause a problem, because it's incredibly delicious. It's addictive. The casein found within it breaks down into a very highly addictive compound called caseomorphine. This is why the cheese and the milk is so addictive. I consumed cheese up until 2 years ago, maybe even later. It worked very well for me, and raw milk worked very well for a very, very long time until it stopped working. Then it started to cause problems. I found that I was gaining fat around the midsection. I found that it was leading to histamine responses, skin conditions, because it can still cause intestinal permeability. So it was bringing me out in spots and rashes and dry skin. So I removed it. Now, a good friend of ours, Steve Podrick, who has a big Instagram channel, we had him on a podcast maybe 2 years ago. I think he was on the live, actually, and he was currently drinking a glass of A2 raw milk every day and thriving, incredible benefits, until it stopped working. And he messaged me soon after and said, I've had to reduce the milk. You were right. I now consume it once a week as a bit of a treat. And that's what I would say. What we tend to find is the deeper that you transition along the journey, the more we become susceptible to compounds that may be problematic. And it's not a bad thing. It just means that the body's early warning alarm systems become upregulated. So the second we put a compound in which is problematic, the body will tell you a lot earlier that it's going to cause a problem and we need to remove it. So if it's working for now, William, keep it in. Just keep an eye on the unwanted fat gain. Keep an eye on energy levels, mental clarity, skin conditions, aches and pains, because these are all signs of the casein beginning to become problematic.
Excellent. We're doing well. We're whizzing through. I think William has a lot of questions. Hang on a minute. Which probably is just backing up what we just said. Week 4 on the carnivore diet, quite low energy for workouts, currently just eating 10% fat beef, other meats, eggs, cheese, and eating no salt, no supplements. So yes, same thing. What could be the cause of the fatigue, I suppose, would be the question. Low energy for workouts, yeah.
It's perfectly normal. So the 4 week on carnivore, that falls into what we've just said with the milk being well tolerated. It does tend to become more problematic the longer that you live the journey. Look, 10%, it's lean. The body does need, we do need the fat, even though we have stored body fat. I would increase that. Eggs, fantastic. Keep the cheese in. Salt is incredibly important, whether it's through supplementation or through dietary salt. Especially in the early stages, we need to replace the sodium So what happens when you come from a high carb diet is we come from a level where insulin is elevated, and insulin is responsible for pulling sodium from 4 points. There's 4. That's not 4. This is 3. 4 points in the nephrons and the kidneys back into the blood. Wherever sodium goes, water follows. And this is what we attribute to high blood pressure. But sodium isn't the cause, it's the insulin. Now, when we become low carb, keto, or carnivore, the insulin begins to drop. This signals the kidney to release the sodium, and therefore it leads to lower blood pressure. Now, sodium is critically important. It's essential. We need it for energy production. It's an electrolyte along with potassium, magnesium, calcium. These are essential compounds. They are electrically charged minerals which allow the body to carry out much of its work. They're part of the electron transport chain, literally part of energy production. And I can't move my arms unless I'm consuming and receiving some form of electrolytes. Now, animal protein's very high in these compounds, but typically in the early stages, we're devoid of sodium. We need to replace the sodium. The salt is the first protocol. I would put the salt in, increase the fat, and that's what I would do initially for a few weeks. If that still isn't helping, I would look at maybe the addition of MCT oil, C8, which I make, by the way, officially by certification, the world's highest purity. The C8 is a natural fat found in things like goat's milk and coconut oil. And this will instantly convert into ketones, into BHB, whether you are adapted or not. So the initial 4 weeks, the body isn't producing BHB and it's not utilizing it efficiently. When we consume the C8, this tells the body to upregulate those pathways that not only allow us to produce BHB, but transport and utilize, therefore fast tracking your body's ability essentially to use the ketones and benefit from energy production. There's also exogenous ketones and things like electrolytes, which again, for full disclosure, I make. But I make these products because the rest on the market are a pile of shit. And I make them because I wouldn't use anybody else's. That's available on my website. We've got an offer on currently, Black Friday offer, up to 50% off across the site. So incredible offers available through theketopro.com. So if you are a supporter of my website, and take a look at that. All sorts of niceties on there. So even for your family members who are not carnivore, there are low carb swaps and alternatives. So if there's something that you think they may benefit from, i.e. a low carb bread or wrap, for example, obviously not for you and I, Steve, as we're carnivore, but these are very good swaps for family members as they transition. Those offers are available, and there's a link in my description, and I will pop it into the chat so it shows on your channel also. But yeah, there's lots of reasons. There is a big transition phase involved with becoming carnivore, and 4 weeks is still early days. It takes as long as 12 months and arguably longer to increase the body's ability to create BHB efficiently, to transport it, and to utilize it. So the best is yet to come.
Yes, brilliant. Thank you very much. I've missed a super chat, and we should always point them out because they're so helpful. I don't know if we've done that. Michael Ellison, $4.99. Thanks, gents. Superb answer. That's really kind of you, Michael. Thank you. There is another one that I need to point out because I really appreciate it. Oh, you both do. The support is amazing. And I can't seem to find it. It was from Nancy, who is a big supporter. But it's supposed to also, oh, there we go. I found it now. Nancy, thank you for your dedication to educating the rest of us. Yes, thank you very much. And it's always good to speak to you. Can't wait for our next conversation, actually. That was going to be very good. I might even be in Spain. I'm not sure. But anyway, right, here we go. War Smith. Hi, guys. Recently started taking taurine, D3 and K2. Not that I directly think I need it, but because it's said to help with any damage caused by previous crap diets. What's your 2 pence, please? Okay, well, Rich can go first, then I'll answer.
Yeah, look, those are things that if we're looking at supplementation, we need to look at the potential harm it's going to cause versus the potential benefit. So is the juice worth the squeeze? The 2 penneth, one of my sayings, or
Yep.
allegedly by Stephen. And the juice worth a squeeze is another. Look, taurine, incredibly beneficial. This is going to help with bile production and reabsorption. It's going to help heal the gut, as you rightly say. D3, incredibly beneficial, and K2. I'm not adverse to anybody taking these. I think as you adapt, you're going to see potentially that you don't need them. But if you are worried that you're coming from a damaged background, then I don't believe that these are going to be harmful to the body, at least. So the juice may indeed be worth a squeeze.
Oh, is that it? All right. Okay.
That's the shortest answer of the night.
It's short. Yeah. I mean, so D3, vitamin D3 and K2, what most people take that for is because it's supporting bone repair, isn't it? And stopping the soft tissue absorbing calcium. So it modulates all the innate immune system in that way. So K2. No, many people say MK7, but Warsmith, if you know Harry Sopanos, he's in my camp. Well, we think it should be MK4. But anyway, MK4, MK7 mix is okay for those things. So basically, we're keeping the calcium out of the soft tissue, putting it into the bone. And of course, taurine is fantastic. It helps with stomach emptying, helps with cleanup operations in the small intestine, and it is fantastic for the osmolarity regulation. I mean, that's one of the things it's really good at. So yes, and it's an antioxidant. So to answer someone later on who was not going to get his question on, this way of eating, yes, we don't need to supplement in an ideal world, but we don't live in an ideal world. Look at us. Richard and I are both looking at screens at nearly 8 o'clock in the evening when we should actually not be doing that. And we all do things that aren't particularly species appropriate. So we're a little bit dysregulated, aren't we? And we have artificial lights, and we don't get up when the sun rises, and we don't stop eating when the sun goes down. We do all these crazy things. So sometimes we have to supplement a little bit. The soil's not as good as it was. We've been, up until age 50, I was eating absolute rubbish. So there's lots of things we've done that have hurt us. So sometimes you do need a little bit of supplementation. Richard talking about the electrolytes. I mean, we're not drinking blood anymore, are we? So we've got to help with a little bridge. But this is the least deficient way of eating out there.
So is that a question or a statement in the comments that later on?
I think that is a question type statement. Yeah.
Can I jump on that really quickly?
Yeah, please do.
Circling back to the one that's on the screen, I agree with you. MK4 is predominantly from animal. And in studies, if we look at MK4 versus 7, we're told that 7 is more beneficial because it's in higher quantities in the blood. But the reason it's in higher quantities is because it's not as a bioavailable. So MK4. Anyway, circling back to this other question. Look, a carnivore, we know that we're carnivore. And there are people out there who will say that we're not, we're herbivore. And we know science has shown through nitrogen isotope testing that we are carnivore. We're not just carnivore, we're hyper-carnivore, which basically means that we consumed other apex predators. We would have consumed plant compounds and seasonal fruit, and that's fine. The plant compounds would have been survival compounds, but if we had access to animal proteins, we would have consumed nothing but animal proteins. And we know this. This is a fact. I'm not going to get into an argument with any vegan that wants to pop on the screen. This is a fact, and we know this hands down. None of us live a true ancestral lifestyle. Even you and I, Steve. We don't eat like I eat pretty much nose to tail, but we no longer drink the blood. Many of us don't eat the connective tissue, the knuckles on the bones. We don't crush the bones. We don't eat the bone marrow. We don't eat all of the soft bones. And as you rightly say, very few of us, if any, actually drink the blood, which is going to contain the electrolytes. So if we were to do that from an ancestral perspective, then maybe we would not require, and many people don't. Many people do not require any supplementation whatsoever, live in this lifestyle. But some of us who, as you say, are exposed to blue light on the screen. I mean, it's 8 p.m. almost in the UK. This is incredibly late to be exposed to blue light. This is going to dysregulate my HPA axis and other pathways. I do things which are outside of an evolutionary appropriate lifestyle. Like from an evolutionary perspective, we would have woken in the morning, we would have gone hunting, caught food. Our biggest stresses would have been, where's our next meal coming from, and can I start a fire? Now we have maybe less stress in each stress, but we have more of them. And the analogy that I always use to this is, if I was to give you this and it weighed 10 kilograms, if I was to tell you to walk around with that 10 kilogram weight all day, you could do it. It's heavy, but you could do it. If I was to give you 10 1 kilogram weights and give those to you to walk around all day, you're probably going to drop them all, because it's harder to carry smaller, more stresses, but smaller quantities for that period of time. And this is what modern life is like. From the second we wake, being late for the school run, late to the office, and so on and so forth, the stress is through the roof. Money problems, relationship issues, stresses are way higher. And sometimes the supplementation on the best lifestyle can help guide us in the right direction and allow us to be optimally healthy. But ideally, the goal is to not consume supplements. I work out, I train a lot. My body may require more electrolytes. Running a marathon isn't evolutionarily appropriate. We wouldn't have been running 6-minute miles for 26 miles. And bodybuilding, this isn't natural. It would have been counterintuitive to catching our prey. So the things that we do today are outside of the box. They're outside of what we class as being evolutionarily appropriate. But what isn't evolutionarally appropriate is living on plant compounds continuously. This is detrimental to our health, particularly the grains and the seed oils. But animal proteins, that is the foundation. And off that foundation, that's what we need to build on, that solid foundation. And the animal proteins and natural fats, that is quite literally what we are made of. And maybe next time we can get into protein synthesis and explain why at the level of the DNA, animal proteins and natural fats are quite literally essential for optimal health.
Right, we're near the end. Just a very quick answer. Do you ship to California?
I do indeed.
Okay, and what is your website?
I do. It's theketopro.com. There is a carriage charge to shipping outside of the UK. And it is difficult because we have to fill in FDA's prior notices, but we do that. The cost of the products are generally way less than anybody else's, even within each category. So people tend to order in bulk when they buy from the States, and that offsets the carriage charge. But the cost of the product is ridiculously cheap currently because we're running Black Friday sales. And as I say, there's up to 50% across the board, possibly even higher, actually. I'm looking at the web now, and some of these deals are crazy. So take a look. But yes, we ship to the States.
Yep, we got a super chat from Karen Field. Thank you very much. That's £5, which is excellent. Just to date stamp this, because Richard has just said that there's an offer on. Today is the 16th of November 2025. So if you're watching this in the future, sorry, Marty McFly, but it's only on for a period of time while you're watching live. Right. Okay. So I think what we'll do now is we'll thank everybody on YouTube. I'm going to post the link, because there's two options now. You can have a standard membership or a premium membership where there's lots and lots of educational stuff. But YouTubers, thank you so much for staying to the end. If you haven't subscribed or liked the video, it really does help us. I know it sounds like it, what can you do? But it can make a huge difference to how many people watch us next week. And if you want to come and join us on school, you can use that link. We know that we've got lots of members already waiting for us at 8 p.m. here in state-controlled Britain. Why don't you come and join us for another half an hour of quick Q&As? Then you've got another one tomorrow at 6 p.m. in the UK here in state-controlled Britain. So we're going to log off now, YouTubers, and we're going to go over to the school. And Richard, did you want to have some closing words? Because normally you don't get to do that. So why don't you say something?
You do it so well. Look, just like to thank everybody for the fantastic questions, some brilliant questions, as always. Keeps us on our toes, but fantastic. Thank you for the support, and hopefully we'll see you on the school channel.
Excellent. Okay. One thing you do need to know out there, when you press the end stream, we never know when it's actually going to finish. So I'm going to press end stream now,